fans, and welcome to Breakdown. I'm your host Bonsai, and today we'll be taking a look at IG Vitality. IG Vitality managed to place above LGD Forever Young in the MDL qualifier, placing first over multiple newly formed teams. It should be noted they didn't directly deal with LGD FY, but they did defeat Tongfu CDC and the newly formed VGJ. While their path to MDL wasn't the most difficult, many of these players have been considered rising stars in China for a decent amount of time. To help understand if their qualification was just a fluke, I brought in a man you've heard talk about this team and others, Lyrical. Welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Really excited to talk about this team. This one is one of my fan favorites, and I'm really curious to see how they do at this event.
Yeah, so what do you think of this roster? It's largely the same that we've been, seeing for a while. A lot of these kind of tier 2 Chinese teams, some of the players get traded back and forth, but a lot of the time they stay pretty consistent.
No, absolutely. And this is the most consistent team in the world, I want to say, as far as how long they've been together. They all got together March of this year. Yeah, this year, 2016. It's weird because you've got that little break where it feels like it should be a year mark off, but it's not. But they've been together forever, and they've been playing really well for a long time, and it's been this sort of like steady growth where you've watched them get very close to being able to qualify throughout a lot of the different big tournaments, and now they're actually at MDL. They've been able to make it through the rest of the Chinese scene, and I can't wait to see how they do with it.
All right, so what are you hopeful for about this team? I know that you've probably casted a lot of their games and even seen some of them when you're not casting, so what do you really like about them going into this?
Well, they're very strong at playing cohesively. Obviously, they're a team that's been together forever. That's one thing, but they also they're not contained to one style of Dota. We've seen a lot of different things out of them. Famously, in July, he's a Bat Rider spammer in his pubs. He's played the hero a ton over and over again. We've seen that hero has been defining. It's always around in the meta, but we've been seeing a lot of it nowadays. Also, you take a look at IGV Super, a little bit of a different look. He's an IO spammer in pubs, which is another hero that you're not too used to seeing. So they have a couple of different interesting things here. Nature's Prophet's another one that's in his wheelhouse that occasionally gets played, but it's kind of like these very global-oriented strategies. You think about an Ancient Apparition, Visage Birds, and things like that, where you can never feel too safe on the map. Bounty Hunter also for dogfights, one of his most played heroes. You've got all of these guys who are playing matchups that are really exploitative of playing well in the late game. I think that in the qualifiers for TI, if I'm not mistaken, they played like a crazy long series. I'm trying to remember who it was against. I think it was against maybe even CDC Avengers. It was like the final match, the defining tiebreakers thing, and it was the longest game of the entire qualifying tournament, and they play really well in it.
All right, so that's, they seem to have a lot going for them, but what do you think is going to be holding them back? What do you think they're going to have to fight off to do well here?
As much as I hate to say it, they are somewhat limited by that star potential, and that's not so much to say that they aren't strong players, but it's more just that there's kind of a gap there. Each of them, they're significantly greater than the sum of their parts as a team, and so like you run into these situations where occasionally somebody gets beaten out in the mid lane and they just can't really recover. They cover each other very well. They're reminiscent of Newbie in that way. Pre-Manila during that major where you would just suddenly have 4 heroes that TP'd mid and they would form a team wipe that happened at like the 7-minute mark. So they're very strong technically in that route, but if they fall too far behind in the early game, that's where it can struggle to catch back up. But also, it's a meta in which that matters less. So I think that's why we've seen them rise to prominence more often, is because it's much more about team fighting and just technical execution in those team fights around the early mid game than it is about strong laning stage. And that's where they suffer, is the laning stage, I would say.
All right, so what is their drafting kind of a problem too, or are they pretty solid on that too?
I tended to feel pretty good about their drafting by and large. They play to their strengths a lot. You think about some of the heroes that come out, they just draft like very strong lineups in general. Vengeful Spirit has been a staple for them for a very long time. But then, over this past month, it's been a lot of Terrorblades because they still feel like that hero is incredibly strong. It does its job well. That's what these IG Vitality drafts are like. They're not too far outside of the box. They play Sven, Juggernaut a ton. Just these straight up heroes that are very easy to understand and get straight to the point. They don't try and mess around too often with things. Probably the weirdest pick that they'll occasionally run is an OD, which I still think is very strong, but it's less flash and more just like we're gonna beat you in the head with our lineup.
Okay, so what would you say is the X factor for the team? The thing that if it goes well, they'll be doing well. If it doesn't, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble and they might not have any sort of success here.
The earlier rotations of super and dogfights to me are probably the most important thing. And this is something that I talked about a lot. I gave you my picks for who I thought was going to be the top teams at this event. And basically all I did for that was I looked at who are the 3 and 4 positions, and how well are they going to be able to stand up? Because that to me feels like the most important position in Dota right now, the way that it's being played. IG Vitality was the one team I didn't do that for. In July always plays really well on his Bat Rider or whatever else they end up giving him. But Super and Dogfights, they play a 4 and 5 position swap off depending upon which heroes they want to go for. And to me, it's really a measure of how much they get out of that early game and then transition that into early game team fights. So I think Super and Dogfights, whichever one is playing the 4, getting stuff done is the most important.
All right. So is there anything else that I might have missed so far that that you wanted to talk about? I know you've got a lot of experience with this team, so you probably have something pretty cool for us, right?
Yeah, there's a couple cool things going on. We've talked a lot about the rise. Invictus Gaming has been getting a lot of hype. I think people are looking at it. You've got the burning OP XSS combo, and to me this feels like Invictus Gaming Vitality is the stronger team out of the two of those squads. And I think the thing I'm most excited about is you start to take a look at some of these players and their winnings throughout their entire life. I mean, $19,000 on their carry, who's been a staple member of this. And obviously that doesn't take into consideration any salaries or things that are going on. But for a tier 2 team, it's very little. Across the board, they're sitting below 20,000 in winnings, with the exception of In July, who's been on a couple of other teams playing for LGD previously. So all of these players are incredibly hungry for a win, and if they do end up coming away with this one, it would be by far like orders of magnitudes above what they've been able to win before. So really excited to see how that goes.
All right. So thank you for coming on, man. Is there anywhere that our viewers can follow you and get your notifications of your casting and anything else that you're working on?
Yeah, just follow me over on Twitter, twitter.com/Lyrical Dota. If you feel so inclined, I'll be probably doing not a cast of the games tonight, but I think I'm going to hop on my channel and watch them in client and just sort of commentate them as well. So if you want to follow that, it's twitch.tv/Lyrical Gangster with an E instead of a 3. God, I need to get them to change that name. But yeah, follow me on Twitter and I'll update with whatever else is going on.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely.
Serious appreciation to Lyrical for joining me on short notice for this episode of Breakdown. Follow him on Twitter to get all his casts and hear that audio chocolate voice once again. Let's condense what we talked about in something that's a little bit more the size of a Reddit post. IGV is a cohesive team that can play multiple styles with excellent ability in the late game. They're limited by their lack of star power and poor laning phases. The X factor for them in this event will be Super and Dogfight's ability to rotate early and try to generate a lead for their team. I pulled the analysts who joined me and a couple who couldn't to see what they thought. Remember that these predictions are with very limited data, so they should be taken with a grain of that salt that all Dota players carry with them. Our analysts did not have a lot of faith in Vitality, with the median placing them at the bottom of the pile. Kyle, Lyrical, and Andy think they can outperform most people's expectations, but can this young group come together in time? Tune into MDL to find out. I'm Bonsai, and thanks for watching Breakdown. Let me know if you agree or disagree with our analysts with a comment here or on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and subscribe. If you have any feedback for the show, you can comment here, tweet, or email me. Huge thanks to my partner Jonas, who created our graphics and helped produce this show. You can find his social media here as well. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.